Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade, the final look at Flesh and Blood sales data scraped off of TCG Player for 2022. So we're going to look at independently the December data, the November to December comparisons, and we'll look at some year-long data summaries. So first off here, of course, I have Welcome to Rathe, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War, all unlimited versions. I don't cover the first edition versions because they don't sell that often and they're too expensive to really matter to much of the market. So you can see just on the horizontal axis, these are only the December data showing right now. But if we bring up the table, we can see how it compares to the November. So November, Welcome to Rathe, basically flat sales. It declined by 7 boxes out of about 300. Arcane Rising increased 21%. And Crucible of War increased 49% in December over November. That's especially weird considering that Black Friday was in November. And some of these products that I'll show here in a little bit had huge boosts on Black Friday. But even to the extent that these got boosts in November from Black Friday, Arcane Rising and Crucible of War more than maintained that and managed to grow the number of boxes sold month over month by a significant amount. And Welcome to Rathe, well, it shrank 2%. Now, the prices were flat except for Arcane Rising up another 11% on average. So these prices here are for the average box sold during the month. So $119 in December was the average price for Arcane Rising during that month. And then I just multiply those together and I get total revenue. That's interesting sometimes in some cases. But what's more interesting here is how these boxes continue to sell, and that Arcane Rising and Crucible of War have actually accelerated their pace of sales in the last month of the year. I would not have expected that. So if I come over here and we just want to look at the plots of these same products for the last 3 months, just to get an idea. Over the last 3 months, Welcome to Rathe, the blue line here, Unlimited has sold 850 boxes, Arcane Rising 400, and Crucible of War right at 400 also. Keep in mind that Welcome to Rathe has been out of print now for 13 months. Arcane Rising has been out of print for 14 months, and Crucible of War was the first set that LSS put out of print 15 months ago. And so we're still seeing over a 3-month period, 850 of these boxes disappear off of TCG Player. So we can come in here, we'll change this to 12, and we'll just show the total year summary for Welcome to Rathe, 2,400 boxes, Arcane Rising, 1,850, and Crucible of War, 1,200 boxes for the entirety of the year. And remember, this is just on TCG Player. And when we look at these 12-month data here, it's important that we take a second and we ask ourselves, what do we think this represents as the total market? Remember, TCG Player is mostly just America. It does not include card stores. It does not include other marketplaces like eBay. You know, it's a pretty small snapshot. That's great when we're looking at data over time. But if we want to see data over the entire market, we have to start making some assumptions about what kind of percentage business does TCG Player do of the entire market. And so if you might assume that TCG Player, let's just throw out a completely made up number, it's 1% of the market. Well, then we would say that probably Welcome to Rathe Unlimited sold somewhere around 25,000 boxes this year. Now, LSS has continued to be cagey about unlimited print runs. They still have not even released the print size of Welcome to Rathe Unlimited, even though it's been out of print for 13 months. And I'm not going to say I'll be surprised if they release it in any timeline. I'll simply be surprised when they do release it. I think they're going to wait quite a while. There's really no advantage to them giving out those data, even though they've said in the past that they would. Now, if we assume that TCG Player is 5% of the market, then we can only multiply these numbers by a mere 20, and we would get that Welcome to Rathe, the total market worldwide, consumes somewhere around 50,000 boxes this year. And really, we don't have a lot of data. We have data about the first edition print run size for Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising, which I believe were both around 16,500 boxes. Crucible of War, I think, was about double that. It was somewhere around 35,000 boxes. And then Monarch First Edition was 125,000 boxes. So we have to really start making some assumptions for which we have no good data to base them on, which is what percentage of the market does TCG Player represent? And then we can try to figure out, is this significant in terms of the total produced amount of the product, which we don't know the size of that either. So it's something to keep in mind, and it will be more interesting as we move on here to the second round of first edition boxes. And I'm going to change this back to a 1. We'll go ahead and throw the plot up here. So these are, again, only the December sales data for Monarch First Edition, Tales of Aria First Edition, and Everfest First Edition. We'll bring up the table so we can look at the exact numbers and the month-over-month change. Now, this is interesting. I actually dug down into the data for this, and Monarch First Edition on Black Friday sold right at 70 boxes. So if you were to strip these out, then month-over-month, it was pretty close to flat, not counting Black Friday. But these other two products, again, significant increases in the uptake in December over November. And these prices, plus or minus 5%, I'd call that about flat. Minus 15%, I would say, is interesting. And so total revenue, again, you would expect, like you see, Monarch is down because it no longer had that boost from Black Friday. And now we'll close this and we'll take this out to 3 months. And when we go to 3 months, we see the total box sales. Monarch First Edition right in here, 409 boxes for the final 3 months of the year. Tales of Aria First Edition, the red line, 308 boxes. And Everfest for 620. It's kind of interesting how this yellow line for Everfest First Edition, both in the cumulative sales and the cumulative spend plots, it takes a big leg upwards in December. So there was a large increase in uptake during December of these Everfest First Edition boxes. I would like to believe that that's indicative of new players coming into the game and reaching backwards in time for boxes, but I don't know that I can really support that argument. It's what I would like to believe. So we'll pull this out to 12 months and look at total year performance for these three products. Of course, our plot includes the release day of Everfest, which is why there's this huge step change spike in the number of boxes sold, and the number is so much higher. But over the course of the entire year, Everfest First Edition, 6,775 boxes, and Tales of Aria First Edition, a mere 1,633. Of course, we do not have the release day data. The release day was previous in 2021. These are just the data for all of 2022. And the same with Monarch First Edition, 1,189 boxes. And now this is maybe one of the more interesting things to break out and talk about here. Monarch First Edition sold 1,189 boxes on TCG Player during 2022. Remember, the entire print run size was 125,000 boxes. So they sold just shy of 1% of the entire population of boxes just on TCG Player just in 2022. And this comes back to what I was saying previously. We have to ask ourselves, do we think that TCG Player represents 5% of the entire market? In which case, 20% of all Monarch First Edition boxes basically disappeared one way or another this year? Or do we think TCG Player might be so little as 1% of the total market, in which case nearly 100% of the Monarch boxes disappeared? And of course, probably neither of those is correct. It's somewhere, it could be in between. It may not even be in between. Maybe TCG Player is 10% of the total market. I'd be very surprised if it were that high. But the point is, if we take something that's maybe non-controversial, like 5%, and I know someone will argue against that, but if we just assume 5% of the total market and that 20% of all Monarch First Edition boxes sold during 2022, remember the uptake of this product, the amount of boxes being opened, the amount of boxes being put back long-term during 2021 from release day around May of 2021 until the end of 2021 where we pick up these data, the number of boxes taken off the market long-term or permanently during that 2021 time period is going to be even higher because the set was new. People were excited to get it in their hands. They wanted to get their fill of the new set, whether you were a collector, a player, an investor, whoever. And I know someone will argue, well, Craig, a lot of those boxes that went off the market this year, they'll be back on the market someday. And yes, you are right. As investors, we hope to one day put all these boxes back on the market. But the point is, you cannot coordinate between investors to dump huge amounts of product on the market of the same product all at once in order to crash the market price. As investors liquidate their closets and slowly put things out on the market, it's a slow trickle. It's not enough to depress the prices long term. And so I'm not worried about the fact that some percentage of these boxes did not get opened, of these 1,189 boxes sold on TCG Player this year. I'm not concerned that some percentage of them did not get open and instead are still sitting sealed in closets. They will come back on the market slowly over a long period of time as each individual investor decides that then is the time to sell. So let's go into History Pack Volume 1. Uprising and Dynasty. We'll go back to the 1 month. We'll just show the December results for these 3 most recent sets. History Pack Volume 1, Uprising, Dynasty. We'll break out the table here to get the exact number. And we see that the number of boxes sold of all 3 of those went way down over the course of the month. And the only one of those for which we could really claim a valid excuse is Dynasty. Dynasty was released on November 11th, and so you would expect its November sales to be pretty healthy, and then its December sales to begin trailing off. And so maybe a 64% decline is reasonable. It seems a little high in only the second month of full release of the product, but maybe it's a little more defensible. It's the sudden 31% collapse of Uprising box sales that's more interesting, and again, the 43% collapse of History Pack Volume 1 box sales when this product is now in month 7 or 8 of release, and the prices were essentially flat this month. And if we look here at just the last 2 months visually of sales of History Pack Volume 1, Uprising, and Dynasty, you see a lot of the same thing. Dynasty being the most recent set sold much better than the other 2 that have been in full release for a while. But there's one more thing I want to do. I want to take these last 3 sets, and then I want to add Welcome to Rathe, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War First Edition to them. And I just want to look at the table here. So notice that in this last month, December over November, these newer sets are way down in sales, and the older sets are flat to up. And that says to me, once again, month after month after month, that people are slowly buying up these older products, putting them away, understanding that they've been out of print each for over a year now, that the supplies are dwindling, especially Arcane Rising. The number of boxes available on TCG Player keeps going down, and that these are one day when the macro environment returns to something a little more normal, a little more bullish, then one day these are going to snap back to the mean and see a sudden leg upwards. I think $65 Welcome to Rathe boxes is ridiculous when that product has been out of print for 13 months. I think that Arcane Rising near $120 today is pretty reasonable, and I think Crucible of War is maybe the most undervalued of the 3 because, as I've said many times before, there is less Crucible of War in existence, I believe, than people realize. So this was maybe the most interesting thing of all these data, was that the recent sets are seeing drops in purchasing, and the older sets are flat to very nicely increasing, even over the November numbers that included the boost from Black Friday. So keep that in mind. If there's any specific data from this data set that you'd like to have that you're interested in, put a question down below. I'll pull the data out and I'll just respond with the number. If you want to know something like the total number of whatever boxes sold this year or anything like that that you can't directly pull out from this video, let me know and I'll help you out. Give me any of your suggestions of other data I could be collecting, things I could be analyzing, other good sources of data like TCG Player that let you just strip out all kinds of information that they probably really shouldn't be giving out to people. So besides that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot.